Hello, hello, and welcome again into another edition of Esports Weekly. I'm Ryan Bailey. I'll be your host as per usual. And as per usual, I'm glad you tuned in because we've got a great show for you here today as we're getting towards the back half of Phase 2 already. We're already almost all the way through September, only a couple weeks left here. And then October means that we are closing out our regular season play as we prepare for DreamHack Atlanta in November. And of course, all those placement stages. And that's where I want to start today, because we've really released the details as of late as to what is going to be going on in that DreamHack qualification stage. It is top 6 in SPL. That is the cutoff if you want to guaranteed make your way to DreamHack Atlanta. If you are the bottom 4 teams in the SPL, if you are a top team in a console region or a top 2 team in either minor league region, you'll be coming along with us to that qualification stage near the beginning of November. But is the top 6 already set in stone? I mean, it kind of feels like we're getting that way. If you missed out on all this announcement, this is what I'm talking about. Placement week, November 3rd through the 8th. Bottom 4 SPL, top 2 in each minor league region, and top 1 from each region of console. Those will play on Sunday against one another to determine who gets entered into the bracket, and that's why you see console 1 and 2. So if the top 6 is where the cutoff is, and that's what we had for the midseason invitational as well, there was a lot of lead up who was going to make it. SK was getting close. Even Space Station at that time, hard to believe now, was pretty close to that 6th seed to the Renegades, who are, by the way, now the definitive best team in the entire league. The season 6 standing so far, that top 6 seems pretty set in stone to me. Now, of course, all of these last few weeks are going to be very, very critical because seeding is going to matter an awful lot, especially when the level of competition is this high. You want to make sure you dodge a team like the Renegades and end up on the other side of the bracket so that hopefully you can beat them or whoever beats them in the finals. So it's not like these last few weeks are for naught, but it might be if you're a bottom 4 team and you're trying to make it to that auto qualification in DreamHack Atlanta. I mean, SK Gaming is the closest team. They are the 7th seed right now. They are 6 and 8, right behind Splice as you take a look at the standings, who's 8 and 5. I don't know, man. I don't see SK being 3 games better than Splice the rest of the phase. They've got their work cut out for them for sure, and they already have played an extra game in comparison to Splice. So if you ask me, top 6 is locked. It will be rival Dignitas Knights, Renegades, E United, Splice, but not necessarily in that order. SK Gaming, in my mind, is hard locked to 7th seed. I don't think we'll see them getting caught by Obey Alliance, Space Station Gaming, or LG anytime soon. So SK will likely be your top seed at the placement land, where last year as the Trifecta roster, they made a great run, made it to semifinals at Worlds. It's not like that's a disappointment, I don't think, for them overall, because they know they still have it in the cards to make it to the World Championships. But it's only 2 teams coming out of that bracket from the placement qualifiers? Again, of the bottom 4 SPL, top 2 each SML region, and top team from each console and console region, that's a lot of teams you gotta beat. And frankly, it's a lot of teams that can upset a lot of squads. I mean, you saw what happened to Rival at the Midseason Invitational. This is not a guarantee to make it if you are SK, and I think that's a team we're going to be focusing on quite a bit towards the back half of Phase 2. And if they will be caught by Obey Alliance, Luminosity, or Space Station Gaming, what are the seeding going to be in those bottom 3? And of the top 6, what's that seeding going to look like? It's going to be all over the place. Make sure you're locked in every week here at Esports Weekly to get your up-to-the-date information on which teams are likely to win in their matchups each and every week and where they might end up in the final seeding. If you missed last week, it was a big week for Rival in particular. We talked a lot here on this show about how they would do in their matchups, as they had 2 big ones. They did what we expected on Thursday. Handled Space Station Gaming 3-0. And ultimately ends up losing 3-1 to the Renegades. Renegades really do solidify themselves as the top team in the SPL right now. SK Gaming, just talked a lot about them. They took a game off Renegades and really could have taken more. So it's a good sign for them as they're trying to not eliminated from top 6, but tough task ahead of them, I think. If they are going to end up making it there, it's going to be pretty difficult for them, I imagine. By the way, Space Station, again, go 0-2. We were talking a lot about their chances of whether or not they can get some revenge up against E United. frankly, it wasn't particularly close. And now Space Station has another doubleheader this week. We're going to talk to their correspondent, Tom Baddinger, in just a little bit, in what feels to most of us around the office like a must-win against Luminosity. If Space Station don't beat Luminosity, who are they going to beat up until those placement lands? That's kind of the cutoff right now. If you're expecting Space Station Gaming to get another win, it's got to be this upcoming week, so make sure you're tuning in for that. Especially because you might see some top plays. We got our top 5 plays of last week lined up, and we're going to start in the Console League with number 5, Inbound on the Sylvanas. Had quite the game this week. Of course, our top 5 plays brought to you by Respawn. This was not the only pull that Inbound hit, but it was one of them, and we decided this is the one we liked. That was impressive, as is Inbound's performance. Hype unit, you'll see them at the placement stages, no doubt in my mind. Number 4, Ice Ice Baby had an insane blink in one of his matches this week. This is one of those that it doesn't seem super crazy at first, but look at that reaction time before the Whirlpool ticks up against Space Station Gaming. That is exactly what we like to see. We take a look at the slow-mo replay. Whirlpool, nah, I don't want to get hit by this. And with the full-on juke, we don't have to talk about the ultimate. It's fine. We're not worried about that one. Number 3, Dardes, in one of the few losing efforts this week for Renegades, had an absolutely bonkers game on the Rama. We've got a couple plays from him, but we decided on this one in particular. This extends the game for quite some time. He is so accurate with these ROM snipes. We haven't seen a ROM in a long, long time, but Dardes making it seem like we should be seeing this character all the time. It's one of those games that SK did end up winning. Man, it was close, in large part because Dardes making plays like that, all 3 onto Zapman right there. Also got a triple kill in that game, in that exact area of the map as well. Fire Giant seems to be a place he was doing pretty well himself. Number 2, we saw, what, 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, maybe 3? We saw a couple multi-kills on a set. This time, we saw it courtesy of Johnny, and look, Horizon Union go on to win this set, and they look really good, and everything is solid. But how in the world do you ever not ban set against Johnny? That was a triple kill earlier on in the game, and then later he decides, you know, I didn't like the fact that my quadra kill got stolen, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it a second time and actually get the quadra this time around. Yeah, Set, good character. Johnny, good player. Don't let him have it. I don't understand how this happened in the first place. This top play should have never happened, but it did. And here we are. A triple kill and a quadra kill for Johnny on the set. Impressive as always as Flashpoint's jungler. And then number 1, Cherio has been making plays all year long. We've seen a lot of Fire Giant steals so far this year. None quite like this. Dodges out that abduct from PBM, sashes Panda Cat, and then decides, I'd like this Fire Giant, I think. I thought it over, and I'll be taking that, thank you very much. Right out of there with the ultimate. And Cherio steals one away from Team Rival as Renegades go on to win that set 3-1. Love those top 5 plays as always, especially when Cherry and Dardes are making plays like that. For the schedule this week, we've got a pretty good one. A couple big games coming up for you. E-United, Pittsburgh Knights, great measuring stick for E-United this time around. Space Station versus LG, as I highlighted, really the game to watch if you're a Space Station fan. This is a must-win for them. They have to face off against PK on Friday in a much tougher setup. And then rival E-United on Friday as well. Good measuring stick week for E-United. In fact, I believe that their mirrored week of this in Phase 1 was what I called E-United Test Week. I don't think they won either of those sets in Phase 1. We'll see if they can do it here in Phase 2. Stay tuned here on Esports Weekly. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up, including a preview of Roll Q not too long from now. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Esports Weekly, everybody. E United had their midterm week in Phase 1. Now it feels like it might be finals week this time around here in Phase 2. We've got Anatoly, the correspondent for E United, joining us here in studio. Toli, I mean, E United take care of business last week. They do what we need them to do. 3-0, a struggling Space Station team. But now they've got their work cut out for them, what should be a very difficult week ahead.
I think so as well, because the last couple of sets was up against easier teams, up against Obey, up against also Space Station Gaming. They were basically toying with their competitions. Those games didn't last long. In all 6 of those games, not losing a single one. The average game length, 26.5 minutes, much shorter than your typical SPL game.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want a top team to do, right, is come in and really dominate it when you feel like you're that far ahead overall, and we certainly did in those matchups. Maybe not as much for these. We'll start off with what we expect to see from them in their first matchup, and that's against the Pittsburgh Knights. This United team certainly has a lot of potential. Is it enough to take down a team like PK?
It's hard to say, because before the bye week, they were very predictable in their picks and bans, going for a priority pick for Callus, Emilito as well. But then since the bye week, they've been prioritizing a little bit differently, switching things up. Emilito playing gods like Ratatasker, Ryzen, Morrigan, Thoth, gods that are not typically in his wheelhouse that you expect him to play, but he's been excelling with them. But those were against lesser teams. I don't know if he can execute those kinds of styles, or the team up against higher echelon teams like Pittsburgh Knights and also even Rival.
Sure. I mean, certainly some of the top-end competition in all of the SPL right now, but I think coming into Phase 2, there were still some questions on, can Big Man Ting stay consistent? Can Emilito return to form? Can Kalas return to form? And I think, to be fair to United, a lot of those questions have been answered. I think Big Man Tings has still stayed pretty consistent, and the duo lane has improved. Where do you see being the biggest strength right now among this roster?
I think Big Man Tings, for sure, you got to point him out. Playing 10 different gods in 15 games, a 66% different pick rate is impressive, especially from your mid laner. We always think of Dardas playing a lot of gods, but Big Man has played more gods in these games, so it's impressive to see that strength. Also, Ice Ice Baby's mechanics. Benji never seems to lose any solo lane matchup, and he's going to need to up against also Final K and Deathwalker this week.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one for him for sure, and that's kind of where we focused on, I think, in Phase 1, and I think it's fair to do the same here in Phase 2. When E United did have those games against the top-end competition in Phase 1 and at the Midseason Invitational, what did you see from them that you thought that was the kind of the breakdown between them beating these lower-end teams and losing against the top-end?
It was a lot of similarities compared to what Renegades was bringing to the table. Their most impressive set in Phase 1 was that reverse sweep they had against Team Dignitas to end Phase 1, giving them a lot of confidence. Not enough to beat Renegades, unfortunately. We'll talk about that later. But I think in Phase 2, they got off to a pretty good start so far, only losing their one set against LG because of how predictable they were. But I think since then, they fixed those mistakes, and this is the ultimate test for them up against PK and Rival this week.
That's true, but they've got a lot of tough games the rest of the schedule as well. I mean, if they've played LG, Obey, Space Station so far this phase, that leaves everyone else in the SPL to play against. That includes Team Rival. Are you looking at Benji versus Final K as the main matchup there, or do you think that Panda Cat versus Big Man Tings might be a more important one?
I think it's going to be important for the junglers. Captain Twig did not impress me at all that last week, going for different gods, different styles of builds as well. A lot of people were like kind of scratching their heads on Captain Twig. So I'm looking at how Ice Ice Baby can potentially exploit Captain Twig, but actually all of you United to exploit Captain Twig. Maybe look for level 1 jungle harass in that category. You expect fireworks, obviously, from the solo lane matchup, though.
Always. Anytime Benji's there, you're expecting a good amount, I think, out of that solo lane matchup. Totally, as I talked about at the top of the show, I feel like that top 6 is pretty locked right now, and that includes E United, but it's a matter of where they're finishing there in their auto-qualification to DreamHack. Where do you expect E United to end up for their final seeding?
Probably like that 3rd through 5th position. I don't expect them to be in the 6th slot. It just depends on if they can kind of go above Renegades as well, because Renegades didn't have the most impressive Phase 1 split in the regular season, but their Phase 2 is actually a little scary, going undefeated thus far.
Yeah, they're both sitting tied in record right now at 9-4 apiece, but Renegades do have a massive plus-minus advantage, +12 compared to E United's +7 as of right now. Totally, thank you very much for joining us and talking about a big week for E United. The Pittsburgh Knights also have to take care of business up against E United. We'll talk to John Finch on the other side. Stay tuned here on Esports Weekly.
Pleased to meet you, human. I don't have a spirit animal because I am the spirit animal. Stay back or you will not like what happens next. You never know what we might be up against. This should keep us safe. Humans think I'm indifferent, but I just don't have any thoughts left to give.
Welcome back to Esports Weekly, everybody. The Pittsburgh Knights doing what we expect, which is finishing near the top end of the SPL as of late. But this is a week where we might see them struggle if they're not all in and focused against two teams that we expect them to beat. We've got John Finch, the Pittsburgh Knights correspondent, to talk about their doubleheader this week against E-United and Space Station.
Yeah.
Two teams that, as I said, we expect PK to beat.
Yes, on paper, this is the week where they should be able to come in and expect it to win. And that's the thing that the Knights have actually done pretty well, is beat the teams they're supposed to beat. The part where the Knights run into problems is teams like Dignitas and Rival, who in Phase 1 and Phase 2 have caused this team some issues. So I think as long as the Knights can show us here they can stay focused in these same sets they normally are, that we could feel good about them. It's more like there's, I think, more to lose here than really to gain, I would say, about the Knights.
Sure. I think that having all the pressure on you is something that some teams struggle with.
Sure.
But to be fair to the Knights, I feel like they have that pressure on them all the time because of the expectations levied on them at the very beginning of the year.
You're exactly right. And the whole year, really, the Knights have fought those expectations. They've said, give us some time. We understand that it's going to take some time for us to all gel together. We got a lot of strong personalities. They've said that every time that I've spoken to them about that issue. So that's certainly where they feel. But that's why these sorts of sets are important. If that's to be believed, if they need some time to work, to gel, if they're going to beat those top teams, then these are those times, right? This is where they do all that gelling, right? I understand that there's some value to the scrims, all that stuff behind the scenes, but coming in and winning up against E-United and Space Station cleanly is the only way I'm going to bet for them to beat Dig or Rival.
Sure, fair enough. And if they're going to beat those top-end teams, it's probably going to be because Zeros is getting comfortable in that mid lane or long lane,
right.
Wherever he's going, I suppose. I mean, they made the swap against every team but Dignitas, where they swapped back to the normal positions for
right.
Vote and Zeros. Was that just a matchup-dependent thing, you think, against Dig?
Yes, because Dig is also very likely to do that swap, right? It's because Herwin will move over there a lot of the time. So they oftentimes, I think, just have to try and adjust that part to fit. But it also depends on what gods that they're picking. Zeros likes to take weird mages over there into the long lane if they can, if they trust that's something that he can play. If not, then they'll switch it back and have Vote over in the long lane. But personally, I like Vote over there in that long lane, man. I think that's where he gets a lot of his bread buttered, so to speak, I guess, or where he gets his name made. Either way, I like having Vote over there on a physical hunter to try and win those matchups, though Zeros has looked good at times on those mages too.
Certainly possible. Anytime Thoth is in the meta, I feel like you're pretty happy to have Zeros.
Yeah, we'll
on
send
your
him over
team.
there with Thoth.
Yeah, we're good. We're good with that for sure. Against the United in particular, Tolly was saying that he thinks Big Man Tings has been playing a big part for this team.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's an area where PK might try and put some pressure?
I think so too. Obviously, the 3v3 has become really important right about now, so that matchup with Ting's going to be important. But I think the big one really might be in the solo lane. I know it takes a while for those matchups to kind of have a big impact on the match. But I mean, Deathwalker and Benji used to be the matchup, right? Until
Sure.
FineOK kind of popped up here in Season 6 and became as dominant as he is. But before that, those are the two guys you wanted to see battling it out. Those are the two who, when they rotated over, you want to see who would have more impact. So I think the 3v3 is important, but kind of keep your eye on that solo lane matchup too.
I think this is going to be a pretty fun matchup to watch, but I do expect PK to take care of business. It's a matter of if all the other casters feel like PK is ready to take care of business against a United team that seems unpredictable
Yes.
at times, I would say. You never know which version of United you're going to get.
Later on, I described them as a tricky opponent for Rival, right? And that's because they kind of are. And it's not just that they like to play different stuff that not everyone plays, but kind of to what you're saying, you're not so sure which version of E-United is going to show up. E-United is a team that I think does play a little bit too much based on their opposition. They'll play a bit down sometimes, and they'll play a bit up. So that means that if you're in the Knights, you got to be prepared for one of those upswings, right, from E-United, because they are likely, it feels like sometimes, to bring out a little bit more against those matches.
Let's see what all the casters think is going to happen in this matchup, and this is one that I find very interesting, that everyone goes PK here. Finch, I mean, look, PK's favored, But I'm a little surprised to not see at least one a united vote.
Yeah, especially because Tom in particular likes to take those long shot guesses. Sometimes Anatoly will hop in there too. But I do think everyone's likely got this one right. This is the safest bet, is to go for the Knights. But I do think that if something is to go wrong for the Knights, I think it is likely to actually happen on those side lanes. The 3v3, as far as I'm concerned, in this matchup does seem pretty even. But I do think there is a bit of a chance for either that matchup in the solo lane or for the matchup in the long lane, depending on who they put over their zeros or vote, to have a pretty big impact on how this goes.
And of course, that's not the Knights' only game this week. They also have Space Station Gaming on Friday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they have to come into the studio and play that.
Yeah. Any level of concern for you? If you had to give me a percentage chance out of 100 that the Knights lose this set, what would it be?
Whatever it's equivalent to whatever the percentage chance is that their PCs all crash. That is that same chance. That is
Low. Yeah,
yes.
Very low.
Very small. I don't think there's much chance that all 5 players for both teams play the games all the way through and Space Station win. That's just where they're at right now.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I'll ask you the same question that I asked Toly. Knights almost certainly going the DreamHack guaranteed.
Yeah.
Where among the top 6 do you think they'll be seated?
Man, it's so tough to say with this Knights team because, remember, the actual seeding isn't the same as the power rankings. The Knights are 3rd, I think, right now, coming into the standings, right? And so they actually have a pretty good chance to hold onto that spot. But Renegades have not lost yet here in Phase 2. They're surging, rivaling to the top. I think there's a chance the Knights could end up 4th or 5th.
Oh, wow. That'd be a pretty big drop for them. Again, as Finch mentioned, they are 3rd right now, sitting at 9-4. But same record as Renegades with a much better plus-minus. So they at least have that in hand. Finch, thank you very much for joining us and talking about the Pittsburgh Knights. Space Station Gaming, as we've highlighted, has struggled, to say the least. But maybe they've got a glimmer of hope against Luminosity, another team that struggled so far this year. Stay tuned and find out.
Hunter reporting in. Specimen acquired. I don't know why you put such a high price on these things. They barely put up a fight. I'm en route to the drop point for payment and transfer. I want these things off my ship. I don't trust a job this easy. Hunter over and out. Don't keep me waiting.
Welcome back to Esports Weekly, everybody. The Space Station Gaming boys have not had a season to remember, but maybe they can turn it around against Luminosity, who is the current 10th seed in the league. We've got SSG correspondent Tom Baddinger joining us here in studio.
Yo.
Hey, what's up, Tom? How are you?
Nice color shirt you're wearing. I just want to put that out there.
Dude, you matched me on Tuesday, and what am I supposed to do, dude? I'm gonna come in with a couple different options now just to make sure this doesn't happen again. This is getting excessive at this point. Look, Tom, we've said a lot about Space Station so far this phase.
Yeah.
Very little of it has been positive. And I think that's been earned.
That is, and that right there, you know, let's kind of talk about how difficult that is in and of itself. Space Station I call this team the hometown heroes. There's something, yes, Barracuda's from local area, Georgia, but that's not why I call them the hometown heroes. This team is the Smite community, like, lifeblood, man. And that it's upsetting to see him at this part. Like, that is absolutely something we have to come over and say, Space Station is the worst team right now. It's rough.
It is rough. But they could be not the worst team, maybe.
Yeah,
if they beat Luminosity. They've got 2 sets this week. We don't have to waste our time a whole lot by talking about the PK set.
They lose.
They lose. However, the Luminosity set, they beat them in Phase 1. That being said,
it doesn't matter. It was a different team. Which team was different? Both teams.
Both teams were different. That was with Venenu still here for Space Station. And I went back and watched some of that set, by the way. Ven had a big set that day. So, again, against a different team, but for what it's worth, what do you do with your Space Station? Because I feel like you have to put all of your chips in the beat LG basket, because this is the last bet you get to take. I mean, you're short stacked, you're getting close to not being able to cover the ante, and you're big blind here, and you may as well push with your really low pocket pair. Like, that's where I'm at right now. Been playing a little.
Double down.
Yeah, that's poker
Split.
terminology for sure. Still blackjack. Yeah.
Dealer wins, and I think that's really what it comes down to, is that at the end of the day, I mean, Space Station have tried a whole lot. They have made some changes. It's too late. They passed the trade deadline, so they can't make any personnel changes. At this point, you can't even look internally. What do we fix about ourselves anymore? That's usually what I ask a team to do. We've done that. I've said, look at the middle lane, the jungle synergy. I still think that Anister, unfortunately, has not been up to the potential that he could be. And again, not in and of himself, it's a push and pull. It's a 3v3 in the mid lane, and it's lacking. Play Joust? I'm just kidding. Realistically, what I think needs to happen is, all right, we have improved as much as we can internally, which is unfortunate that this is where I think the ceiling is for Space Station. So you've got to look at the opposition. You've got to look at LG. And that means I think you got to look at Ionic. I think that Ionic is the weak point of this team, understanding that, even the weakest point is a strong point. No disrespect towards that position. But he is fresher than a lot of the players as far as, his recency into the league. He's obviously had some issues on the field itself. You don't have to take a recency bias. You just look at it. If there is somebody to attack, it's not anywhere but the support.
Should be something that they might look to do, but at the same time, you look at what other teams have done to Space Station so far this phase, and it's been kill Barracuda as often as possible. I mean, that has been the strategy, I think, again, for a lot of these teams against SSG.
Which is the right strategy, because I'm up here championing for Aquarius, but Barracuda shows us why he is the lifeblood of the Smite community. Because, I mean, over the years, when the going gets tough, the tough gets Barra, meaning he stands up, does the work, and then people jump on him because he's clearly the target that's doing it for this team. Aquarius needs to become an overnight superstar because Barracuda cannot be the only one on the team, because if he's the first, second, and third option, he's the first, second, and third target. Jeff Hindley's playing support, and a lot of people are talking down about Jeff and mainly looking at Godpool, and sure, but if you play Kumbhakarna every game, you can win a world championship. It's not about that, honestly. It's much larger than one position. I know I've said Andy's name a number of times, but it's much larger than one position. So, yes, you have identified that they attack Barracuda, and they should, because he's the one bringing the milk. I need Aquarius over there to really start bringing the dairy as well.
What do you think happens in this set against Luminosity? Because this is one we won't get to predictions until we talk to LG a little bit later, but overall, how do you feel like this set's going to go?
I think this set is going to go in LG's favor, and I think that the headline there is less about Space Station Gaming and more about Luminosity standing up on their own 2 feet, if only just not to beat a dead horse. I do think LG has improved, and I think this is ultimately the litmus test. This is the moment. I know we're week 8 in phase 2, so maybe I'm giving them a little bit more credence because Space Station is our team. Maybe we've already decided I'm being too nice. But this is the moment. If LG win here, Space Station is unequivocally and unfortunately the worst team in the league.
I don't think you can really argue it at that point. Of course, that isn't their only set. Friday they go up against the Pittsburgh Knights. Predictions. Wait, I'm going to close my eyes. It's a lot of black and gold. Also, Pittsburgh Knights are going to win. That's what. Can I open my eyes yet or no? I don't know if the graphics. Someone help me. Like, you're sitting next to me, Tom. Oh my God, I just got punched in the face by Tom. Hey, the predictions are up. And hey, there is a lot of black and gold on the screen. Finch equated this percentage to the percentage that some of the Pittsburgh Knights players cannot play the game on Friday. Are you in that same vein?
I think if the Space Station Gaming team has the same amount of chance of beating Pittsburgh Knights as I do getting gifted $5 million by Jeff Bezos.
Hey, Jeff.
Hook it up.
You up? I mean, I don't know. Just send him a text. I don't know how it goes around here. Tom, thank you very much for talking about Space Station Gaming.
Thank you.
Now, Tom's not the only one who's been talking to SSG. I had a chance to sit down with Jeff Hindla and a bunch of other supports to talk about the support role in general. Stay tuned. You'll get a sneak peek of the support role queue right on the other side of the break.
Pleased to meet you, human. I don't have a spirit animal because I am the spirit animal. Stay back or you will not like what happens next. You never know what we might be up against. This should keep us safe. Humans think I'm indifferent, but I just don't have any thoughts left to give.
If you haven't been paying attention in Roll Q, it's all the rage right now. Everyone's loving hearing it from all of these pros and all their different roles, talking about the history of their roles, playing against one another, and all the fun that's part of it. It's on SMITEPro's YouTube, but this one isn't yet. Debuting this weekend. It's a support Roll Q. Take a look. What did junglers ever do to you guys to like deserve the treatment that they're getting? I mean, I know that they complain about their role, they get speed buff, they gank your lane at level 2. And it's all kind of come back to you guys harassing the jungler at level 1. Do you like playing this style? Do you like trying to screw over the enemy jungler, Raffer?
I would if it was adapting, just because I know it tilts him. But personally, I don't really like that sort of play style, but I'll definitely adapt to it. If someone requires me to play that way, I would. But it is troll. I think it's so troll.
I love it.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good group. Jeff, you're probably the only one that doesn't love it quite as much.
No, yeah, I definitely prefer laning. That's just what I've been doing forever. I prefer, you know, the 3 to 8 minute laning thing, and I'm fine with going in and baiting or starting at this weird section of the map or blocking this person or literally just going to like their speed to their red and doing nothing for 7 minutes and being level 4. But I'll do it, but I'd prefer to lane.
Fair enough. How about for you guys?
You're not having fun. I'm having fun. So
yeah, this is like your ideal start.
I definitely like invading. It's just kind of sucks when it goes bad, you know. Well, I mean,
I remember.
Was Neil the one who started it?
I mean, he was one of the. I mean, that's where we got it from, at least in the start. That's why I was like, nope. That was so annoying, but I love it. I love not getting gank level 2 in my lane, so I am perfectly fine being at the jungle, knowing where he is and following him every single move.
That's super smart. You don't want to get ganked to level 2 in lane, so you just leave.
Exactly.
He does the ganking himself.
Right, you do the ganking yourself. I mean, how, like, when your team was first like, hey, we really like this idea of you getting no experience whatsoever.
That depends if you get the buffs, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, hey, we love the idea of you 50-50ing all of your experience in the early game. Were you like, what? Like, what was that conversation initially like?
I think in the start, everybody was just like, go for the 50-50 and hopefully the better player gonna win that, right? But I think it's gotten way more calculated now, so people don't take the risk in that sense. So like now they put 2 at speed, but then you do something else, maybe invade their blue buff, or like you do the RNG start now, just take the safe start and start with at your speed buff and go to red, so you get some experience. So I think it's just it's gotten way more calculated.
Yeah, I mean that is a big start that you really pioneered, Raffer, and your team kind of at MSI, that safer route. Was that just born of, I don't want to 50-50 all my farm and I can get more guaranteed stuff here?
It was just Cherry. Cherry said, initially it was me starting in solo, so this is a funny story. And then Nico went, we could proxy. And I went, sure, I've got sprint. And he said, okay. So I just randomly sprinted to the wave. We died.
But you got there real fast.
We got there fast, cleared the buffs, cleared the wave, and I'm there just trolling. And I tried running past the tier 2, I'm pretty sure. And then he chased me, killed me. And I'm like, that was worth it. And Nico's like, just F6, you know, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not having him in my lane ever again. And Cherry that night thought, Rafa could just start with me, you know. No one else wants him. I'll take him. And I went with Cherry with his open arms. It's like
no one else wants him.
No one else wanted me, man.
Fun baller, get the hell away from my farm. Dardes just like silently staring at you, I imagine, not really telling anything.
Dardes loves me. He wants me to start his lane. I just know he does.
Okay, fair enough. Guys, I think that in a lot of games, not just Smite, but MOBAs, first-person shooters, whatever, no one really... I don't meet as many people that want to be the support player. Everyone wants to do all the damage. They want to, do the cool stuff. What made you decide to play support? Because I feel like it's not necessarily always the most popular choice.
I mean, I've actually played a lot of different roles. I was solo and support has been my 2 roles. The reason for support is just the fact that I think my mechanics are possibly worse than the way I communicate and can lead a team, possibly, that's all I'm saying.
Possibly, maybe.
But I think that's why support fit me, because I'm pretty good at leading, pretty good at being communicative, like talking, and the support usually have the bigger picture of the whole map and everything. So
Bigger brain as well.
Yeah, the bigger brain as well. So you know, you gotta engage as well. That's my style. So I think it just fit me for that reason.
Makes sense. How about for you, Neil?
I used to play jungle, I remember, and then I would just have my supports bait me, and I would like be Thor, and I'd be like, "We should fight here," and everyone's like, "Yeah," like everyone agreed, like, "Yeah, we should fight." It's okay, like someone's getting in there, right? They're like, "No," like I'm just Thor, I'm up in the air, spinning my hammer, like I guess I'm getting in there. And I just die, and I'm like, "This, why don't I just play support, man?" Like that's actually what started. Not kidding. Like seriously, I was just sitting there, and I was like, "No one's engaging. Like it's just so easy. You just go in there, and it doesn't even matter if you die, just go in." And so I switched to playing support, and I just played that for a while. I actually really liked it. I think it fit me pretty well. Yeah.
Even though you still want to play your Hachimans and that kind of stuff, which can work in support, of course.
I mean, yeah, they have a lot of potential. I mean, a little bit less peel on Hachiman, but I mean, with Pridwin now, you can ride in there. You have a shield. You have a nice stun followed up. So
right.
You can
That's
definitely,
two slows back to back off the ult.
Yeah, like Raffer said, you have big brains. So I mean, just gotta be theory crafting a little bit. Can't be too stale.
We'll get back to that in a little bit, I promise. As I mentioned, that's all going to be on the SMITEPro YouTube channel this weekend. I also have done some with some other roles. Make sure you go check that out on the YouTube. At SMITEPro on Twitter. Give you all the updates, all that kind of good stuff. More role queues coming in the end of Phase 2. Stay tuned. We'll be right back talking Luminosity.
Hunter reporting in. Specimen acquired. I don't know why you put such a high price on these things. They barely put up a fight. I'm en route to the drop point for payment and transfer. I want these things off my ship. I don't trust a job this easy. Hunter over and out. Don't keep me waiting.
Welcome back, everybody. Luminosity, a team on the rise, going up against a team that they are trying to leapfrog in the standings in Space Station Gaming. We've got Graham Hadfield with us here to go over LG. Graham, I mean, a lot of changes for LG coming in Phase 2, and I think a lot of people got very excited, but it's been a little bit since we've seen them.
That's true. It's taken a couple of weeks for them off, obviously because of how the schedule falls for them. Team as a whole, I got a chance to speak to Lasber a little bit about how he felt about, well, how his season's been, because he's one of the players that came in through the challenger scene, or the minor league scene, into the pro league and started off in mid lane. But this is one of the things he said: the changes made us a better team, and that's talking about the addition of Eonic here alongside Snoopy joining this roster. A couple of changes with Kiki coming off this team, and Oceans as well. LG did not have a very good Phase 1 whatsoever. They were towards the bottom, if not the bottom of the standings with how it went, and now we can kind of see Space Station Gaming could be the team to take over from that.
Crazy to think about that. The trajectory of both of these squads really has switched, because LG doesn't win a set in Phase 1. They come out, they've only won one set so far, but it was against a United, who's a really tough competitor.
It was, and what a lot of what Lasber was telling me was that, listen, we know we've not won the games against the bigger teams in the league, but we have taken them 15 minutes in, which shows that we're finding windows, you know? We're getting there with this, and they're just continuing to work on it. They've been practicing a lot, and they're looking to improve consistently. They feel like that during the improvements, during the scrims, they're finding extra steam, they're finding the improvement they're after. And the main thing from them is to get the best seeding possible and be prepared for qualifiers, because they recognize they're not going to be able to automatically qualify for the World Championships. They have to play through the qualifier phase, but to do that they need to get themselves set up in a good spot to do so, because these console and minor league teams, they're going to be ready to scrap.
No doubt they're going to come in with a target on their back for sure, as a team that a lot of people are talking about. Do you think that fans and maybe even us as casters have jumped the gun a little bit on saying this team is way better than they were before? Do you think that we are accurately representing their skill level?
I think we are accurately representing it, just mainly because if you look at what this team brings on its own, if you look at Ionic, if you look at Snoopy, two names that we mentioned quite a bit already this year, they are now almost in more comfortable roles and have played together before. The old Cog Red team, I'm sure people remember that from World Season 1.
Oh yeah.
2-star players on this roster are from that team. Then we talk about Lasbra, who in the minor league last year for Insignum had such a good run, and people were touting him to be an SPL jungler. He gets his shot, but it's in the mid lane.
Yep.
This is the first split. He gets jungle for the whole time, and that core on that team is what we should be watching. Also, I'm still not talking about him, Josh and Zalia. They've had solid performances too. Joshi specifically, a big step up for him to this role, but he's taken on the fight.
I agree. I think that Joshi really has stepped up and been a real star for this team, but he's got one of his bigger challenges now in Barracuda, who, despite SSG's struggles, has still looked consistently good. I expect we'll see LG do a lot of what other teams are doing at Space Station, which is either leave him alone during the laning phase or focus him super hard.
And I think both have works against SSG as well, so if you actually focus Barracuda, it shuts down the potential of the late game situation where Barry gets online and causes a problem. Or the other option, which is an even bigger one, is ignore him completely, leave Joshi there to frustrate him with a god like Jingwei, a Cronus with rewinds, right? Just sit there, farm up to the late game, and let the team fights do the talking.
Just take care of him once everyone's all together. Certainly an option, I think, for LG. As split down the middle for predictions, Tom and Tolly feeling that SSG is going to get their first win since April, I believe.
Either they were drunk or this is a misclick, one of the two. It is, I'll be joking. I do think this is definitely a little bit closer. This is probably one of the closer games at the bottom we've had in a while. I think there's a lot of talk of LG on the up and up, and everyone's still got that heart blood in them. Tom was mentioning it earlier on. SSG is Smite's team. They've been around since Season 1, at least some of these boys on it, so everyone is always going to have a little bit of place in their heart. It's always hard to see the teams start to fall, but this could be a moment that just seals their deal and shows you that SSG are not going to do very well this split at all.
I just feel like maybe you get the angry animal backed into the corner version of SSG. This is their last shot to win a game.
But then you look at it as well, though. We've talked about that through multiple games in a row this year.
I know, but this is really their last one,
like,
man.
This is the one. This is the last one. Okay, surely they're going to perform here. And now we're talking about them maybe beating LG, how the Titans have fallen.
Once they lost to Obey, I think that was when we were all like, yo, this is getting bad.
Going back towards LG, though, because that's the team I really care about in this one. LG as a whole, I will say this is giving me remnants of the old SK team we saw last year. The SK, no, I don't mean the SK team in Europe, by the way. I mean the one representing SK right now that were formerly known as Trifecta. There's a lot of remnants to them where they could actually gather some steam. And if they do well at the placements, don't be surprised for a potential upset situation at Worlds. But not if they get the number 1 team. I think if they get number 2, whoever that might be the window.
Yeah, you mean playing Renegades might be tough when it comes to the World Championships?
If Renegades are number 1.
Yeah, that's true.
Still up for debate there?
Certainly is. Plenty of movement still on the table when it comes to Phase 2. Graham, thank you very much for joining us to talk LG. Team rival, they didn't get their win against Renegades last week, but have a chance to get off on the right foot here again in week number 8. Stay tuned. We'll talk to John Finch on the other side. Welcome back, everybody. Team Rival, a team at the top of the standings right now, but certainly want to hold on to that as we get closer and closer towards DreamHack Atlanta. We've got their correspondent, John Finch, here with us.
Hey.
Finch, E-United, a team that we expect Rival to be the favorite, of course, but E-United certainly has the potential to be an upset.
I think so too, and there's a couple of places where I think that potential could kind of shine through. One place is the jungle because, and I don't want to pile on, but there are a lot of people that were unhappy with some of what they saw from Twig when they played last week up against Renegades. And to be honest, little was working for them, but that might be a good place to focus in. Ice Ice, to me, has actually been looking really, really consistent lately. I think that's part of why people have been so happy with what they've seen from Tings. He's getting good play from Ice Ice in the jungle. That matchup, to me, could very well dictate how this goes.
I agree. I do think that Ice Ice has been a real catalyst for this United roster. In Twig, when he has those really big games, Rival win like it's a breeze.
Right.
When he has those games, he had a great one on Ares recently where he just outright wins them the game. I don't think that the absence of those games, though, necessarily mean that Twig is not contributing.
I agree. I think that you kind of described it once as, they know that they've got Fine OK and they've got PBM and they know they have these guys that are going to succeed from them every time, right? And then you just need Arkle and then Twig to maybe have like a dominant performance sometimes.
Right.
And then that's how that team kind of can hit that good average for them where they can stay up near the top. And I think that's a good way to look at it. People think it's an excuse, but it is not. Captain Twig plays multiple different styles for this Rival team. That is the truth of the matter, whether or not you like it. He'll play something like an Unbots, be the facilitator. He'll play something like an Erlang Shen, run the early game and control the entire game. He can do that whole gamut.
It feels to me like if I were to equate this team with the Golden State Warriors, Captain Twig is Andre Iguodala.
Yeah.
I mean, he just has he's there, he's doing his job, he's doing good things, and then he'll put up 25 off the bench, and you'll be like, how do we ever beat this team?
Right.
You know what I mean? Just when he hits that next level, they look completely unbeatable.
Right, and you're not mad sometimes if it's like 4 points because he's doing literally everything else you need a player to
He's
do
got
for you
like
on the
8
field.
assists and 12 boards.
Yes, exactly. So it's like that, and I do think it comes from a bad spot if people are saying Twig's not doing enough for this team. Rival is the best team overall throughout this year. I think that's fair to say right now. The hottest team is Renegades, but this whole season, Rival has been up there near the top. So this United match, I think, is going to be a big point. The jungle is a good place to look here for this one for sure.
And the other one you mentioned was Arkle. I mean, he has an insane set earlier last week, I believe. He really looked good at a lot of points.
Yeah.
Also did not look quite as good. I mean, that's been the nature of the beast for Arkle so far.
It has been. He's been a bit up and down. And this one, I'm not willing to describe it quite the same way I described it with Twig, where I think sometimes Arkle does something different for the team. I think there are times where Arkle just takes bad fights or doesn't have enough information but still moves up anyway because he feels good about that current power spike he has in the actual 1v1 matchup. And it's come back to bite him. But more times than not, 33% that time where Arkle maybe doesn't look good, 66% of the time he's soloing someone in lane for your team and doing what you want. If they're getting that percent from Arkle, that good shot from him, then it is going to be a real tough match over there for Emil and the rest of United.
To keep the basketball analogy going, who's better, J.R. Smith? Because that's what I've got for Arkle. I mean,
Yes.
Certainly not J.R. Smith level. I wouldn't put that evil on anybody.
No.
But that explosive playmaking ability.
The willingness to shoot, right? Yeah, that feels like that. Yeah.
Always, for sure. I mean, his Hou Yi game in particular in Game 3 of that set against Renegades.
Yeah, he made some great rotations, yeah.
Ends the game. I mean, the Rival was off to a good start, but Arkle slams the door closed.
He absolutely is, and I think Arkle does provide some challenge in picks and bans too, because his god pool is a little bit different from everyone else. He does still have a bit of a proclivity for those physical hunters. A lot of other people are playing Jonquils and Thoughts over there, so it changes up the way that you play. If you're E-United, they got to make sure they're coming in properly prepared, not just for the meta right now, but for the stuff Arkle actually realistically plans on playing.
And E-United is one of those teams that you can expect pretty simple things out of Emilito. And I don't mean simple as an insult by any stretch, but he's also playing a lot of hunters these days.
Sure.
As it looks like everyone's voting for the purple and black. I mean, this Rival squad has been, as you said, one of the most consistent teams, if not the most consistent team all year.
Yeah.
The only team at 11 wins right now. I think it's hard to vote against them.
I think it is hard to vote against them until they end up losing, or I guess they're playing Renegades. I mean, because that's just how good that team is in this exact moment. But I mean, again, I still trust them to have some upside in that match up too. Man, Rival, I mean, I want to give some credit to PBM. How good has he been across this last 3 years in general? The Season 4 win with E-United on the best team in North America in Season 5 until Splice won World Championships, and now on the best team here again in Season 6 with Rival. I mean, this dude's nuts. Clearly a catalyst.
And all that despite being a Ravens fan. Isn't
Right,
that
yes,
crazy?
that's
I mean, that is
insane.
dragging you down to the depths of the of just complete
Well, they got Lamar
ineptitude.
Jackson now, so it's all good. So they're
He's
fine.
our god, apparently. I don't know. That's what they keep telling me. Something along those lines. Finch, thank you very much for joining us. Of course, we still have to go over the SCL and SML. We'll do that as we close out the show. Stay tuned on Esports Weekly. Welcome back, everybody. As I mentioned at the top of the show, it feels like top 6 for SPL. Pretty locked in, and we're kind of there for a lot of these console league teams as well. In some of these regions, it feels like the race is basically already over. No one's catching Team Rival in Xbox Europe. No one's catching Hype Unit in NA Xbox. But the PS4 leagues are both incredibly competitive right now and certainly worth your time to tune in for on Mondays. We'll start with EU PS4 and Aerial Arise pulling away a little bit. They still have a game lead over Out Cold, who was your representative for the Midseason Invitational. That one continues to stay close with VGS Gods and MB3. Also not uncompetitive. Certainly all those teams capable of winning against each other every single week. As I mentioned for EU Xbox, this one is all Rival, as we kind of have come to expect out of this region. Rival is the tried and true team, and now that they've got Fly back in the mid lane, the Dobson experiment worked okay enough, but not well enough to keep Fly on Dabo's Disciples. Dabo's Disciples, after losing last week to Rival, all but lose their hope of upsetting this team for the top end. Now, in NA PS4, Nemesis didn't drop a single game all of Phase 1. Not the case here in Phase 2. In fact, this has been our closest region without a doubt, but Nemesis has reclaimed their slot, but not by much. It's really just everyone piling onto Cavalry right now for what it's worth. But Nemesis at 5-2 after a big win over Big Money this week. And then an NA Xbox, as we've come to expect here, just like in Xbox Europe, it's Hype Unit, man. I mean, Bobby and the boys, they're coming to land. I don't care what anyone says. Blanche Fan Club tried their best last week, still were not enough. Hype Unit sitting at 6-1, plus 10 in the plus minus, and they're looking good. I expect them to see them at land without a doubt. Probably not even breaking a sweat the rest of the way through this Phase 2. As for the SML, it has been close and it has been competitive, and it looks to continue to stay that way. Top 2 is what we're talking about, and for a while it was all Flashpoint and Simplicity. All Flashpoint and Simplicity. Don't worry about anyone else. They're the only teams that matter. Not anymore. 2 big upsets. Both those teams take losses here last week, which is just absurd. I mean, Queso is able to beat Simplicity, I believe, and then Flashpoint losing to Horizon Union. Horizon Union, as an expansion team, comes out. They force Simplicity to a Game 3 a couple weeks ago. They beat another team, I think that was Queso 2 weeks ago, and then Flashpoint this week. Now sitting at 5-2 between Simplicity and Flashpoint. That region's going to stay very close the rest of the way. If you're not tuning in to start off on Tuesdays, I don't know what you're doing, because it has been a lot of fun watching those teams without a doubt. And then on the North American side of things, Hype Unit was starting to run away with it, but then they take a loss, and all of a sudden, it's wide open again. Now, Armada does win up against a struggling Exilium team, but it takes them 3 games, and that plus-minus is really going to hurt them in the end. Sanguine also find a win, as everyone at 5 wins right now. But man, this region is going to be close. It's a 3-team race between Hype Unit, Armada, and Sanguine for that top 2 slot. Hype Unit got off to such a good start. I still feel like Armada and Sanguine have a chance to be those top 2 teams, and Hype Unit might lose a little bit of that momentum, but it's going to be a lot of fun. on the back half for sure in the North American Minor League. Hype Unit is just one of those teams that play with so much aggression and play with their this kind of weird play style. I kind of feel like teams will figure it out at some point. Maybe that's already started to happen. I don't think it has, but this is a team that has a lot of potential. I mean, you've got Mollusk in the jungle. He's played so well. Benny Q is playing great in that long lane, but how long will that stay consistent? As long as teams keep giving him all a run, probably for a while, to be honest with you. But this is a team that I'm excited about in Hype Unit. And the North American Minor League has been a lot of fun to watch for those top 3 teams, so I'm excited to see that this Tuesday as well. As for the SPL, I talked a lot about it at the very beginning of the show. Top 6, that's who's going to DreamHack guaranteed. And I think it's going to be your 6 teams you're looking at right here. Rival, Dig, Pittsburgh Knights, Renegades, E United, Splice. And then 2 more. But it's between those bottom 4 teams, the top 2 SML teams, and all the console teams. And that one seems pretty close to call. As for this week, E United, Pittsburgh Knights kick us off on Thursday. Space Station with their last chance, realistic chance, I should say, at beating a team in Luminosity to close us off on Thursday. And then rival E United plays up a lot to competition. Totally highlighted their reverse sweep of Dignitas in the final week of Phase 1 going into the midseason invitational. If we see that version of E United, rival might not find the win. I think coming in focused for this rival team is going to be important. A couple weeks ago, John Finch mentioned how PBM and the boys may not have been preparing quite as hard for the teams they expected to beat all the time. This is one they should be prepping for sure. Otherwise, the United could certainly trip them up. Thanks so much for watching here on Esports Weekly. As always, you can get all your up-to-date Smite news at SMITEPro on Twitter. We hope to see you Thursday and Friday, and then, of course, Monday, Tuesday for SCL and SML, and then next week for more Esports Weekly. It's a good time. Make sure you check out the SMITEPro YouTube this weekend for the new episode of Roll Q. And as always, you can get in touch with me on Twitter at Aggro. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week here on Esports Weekly. You can peach it.